Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Let's get to it. Welcome into Monday. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. All right, that spring press conference, we are back at it, right? Football is here, and, well, not quite pad cracking tomorrow, but eventually, right? You get a spring football season. God help us. So we'll hear plenty from Scott Frost, from Coach Chenander, JoJo Doman. A lot to get into on some of those key questions, and the timeline begins for answers between now and fall for Nebraska football 2021. You're welcome to join us. Jump in, give us a shout, find us on Twitter or email. Can find us phone number-wise, 466-3776, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. Email chris@hailvarsity.com. And always on Twitter, give us a follow. Find us at Schmidt_radio. Chris Schmidt at Herbal Essence for Elijah Herbel. And we will talk to Steve Warren. The Warren Academy has their showcase coming up here in April. So we'll talk to number 96, Husker Hall of Famer and black shirt standout Steve Warren. So excited to get Steve's take on not only the upcoming showcase, but Steve's take on spring ball. He still follows the Nebraska football program all the time. And Steve has been so great at development, not only with athletes with the Warren Academy, but Steve's been so good in the community with the Dream Foundation. So Steve with us in about 20 minutes. Charlie McBride, Mr. Blackshirt, will be with us. We'll talk defense, offense, offensive line. We'll go full bore spring with him. And then plenty of time for you the rest of the show. Barry Alvarez is stepping down at some point. Reaction to that. Husker baseball. Got them brooms going again. Plenty of college hoops with what an incredible weekend ball game between UCLA and Bama. The Elite Eight stage will be set tonight and tomorrow. I will check out tonight, but I'm really kind of geeked up about UCLA Michigan tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
I think that'll be a party. Baylor, Arkansas, maybe I'll tune in a little bit tonight.
But my problem is it looks like Gonzaga's untouchable. I mean, even Baylor looks like they're going to make it to the Final Four. The only good game left, I think, is Michigan and UCLA, because it looks like USC is also a bit of a buzzsaw at the moment, too.
Well, and you're going to get SC Gonzaga. All right. I mean, you're gonna get that, and
let's take a look at my bracket here.
No, you're not getting it, nor am I. I think Andy Markowski's the brain in the city with the USC call, the Pride of Ord. But no, SC's damn good. I mean, wow. I'm sorry. I have not checked out a lot of USC basketball or Pac-12 After Dark with Wild Man Walton.
Yeah, that last game's what? Oregon State and Houston?
Yeah, I think Houston really makes it hard to watch, but man, they dominate you. I mean, they're so athletic and they're so physical. But I like Mick Cronin. I liked Mick Cronin when he was at Cincinnati. And I remember that Cincinnati came in here and got beat by a point, either against Doc or against Tim Miles. It might have been the Doc era, I'm thinking. Doc Sadler. But that was a rock fight. I mean, it was a struggle to get to 55. But Mick's not perfect for L.A., but he's perfect for UCLA. Because you're getting just straight up blue-collar, short man's disease, where he is just ruthless and passionate and fiery. And you can see the spit flying when he pulls his mask down and he's screaming. But they respect him and they play for him. And that was a great hire by UCLA because they've got offensive talent. They've got insanely talented athletes. That whole squad's big and tall and fast, and they can make shots. But, man, they do the little things, and you don't always get a lot of little things done in Hollywood. because they think they're too good for it. So kudos to UCLA's run. Michigan looked incredible without Livers. They didn't miss a beat. I mean, what they have, like 19 shots in the paint. They hit 15 of them. They had 10 dunks. They only attempted a handful of threes, weren't reliant on it, and they were great defensively. Yeah, Florida State was a tire fire with their defense and their communication. And
tire fire is a generous term for what that performance was.
Well, they were just outclassed and outcoached and out-executed.
Yeah, I'm glad we both missed that one in the steak and a beer bet on Friday.
Right.
We both looked dumb there.
Well, I think the world was like, well, no way, Michigan. I tended to agree, and then they played. So let's dive into some spring football thoughts. And, a lot to cover with this. And, there's so much on our mind and on your mind as a fan right now here. I mean, special teams, winter testing. You've got a really talented wide receiver room, the Oklahoma game. I mean, all of that was going to be approached and touched on by the head football coach today. So here's Scott Frost leading things off, and Parker Gabriel led the thing off on the presser today with what was going on. What was the thought process with this Oklahoma-Nebraska situation that caused panic about 3 weeks ago?
Our program, I give Bill Moose a lot of credit. I think we had fewer furloughs and layoffs and salary reductions than almost anybody in our league or in the country. I think Bill did a great job navigating us through that. That being said, there was a $40 to $50 million budget hit to our athletic department, and I think there was a lot of discussions on ways to help with that. I think they looked into a lot of different things. I think the biggest thing for me as a football coach is we were scheduled to play in Ireland week 0. It made a lot of sense playing overseas to take week 1 off and get your feet back under you when you get stateside. Now that game's not overseas, sure, it doesn't make a lot of sense for us to have a week 1 bye. I think bringing our players back a week early and then asking them to play one game and sit out doesn't make a lot of sense. And the biggest thing for me is I think the city of Lincoln's starving, our local economy's starving for home games and getting in the stands to see our football team. For recruiting, too, we need home games, and the earlier the better. I think right now as it sits, we only have 1 home game scheduled till October. And even for recruiting, a lot of kids will have made their decisions by then. We haven't had recruits on campus in almost a year and a half, 2 years. So I think we're looking at any and all options to try to change the schedule to get more home games and get more home games early.
So that was Scott's answer. Eric Olson of the Associated Press pressing Frost on the Oklahoma discussion about dropping OU. We'll hear that in a minute, but here's what I look at and read into things, just to put a bow on this Nebraska-Oklahoma. It's going to go away until Oklahoma-Nebraska game week. You may not forget, but it won't be top of mind. I know we're going to shift at, all right, what's the pass rush situation look like? Are you going to see better special teams? Do you have a couple of studs in the running back room? Can you get some emergence at wide receiver? What's your backup quarterback situation look like? Do you have an offensive line that's ready to take a step forward, that have played a lot of football together aside from your left tackle, and what you're trying to replace at right guard? I mean, all bigger and more important topics to kind of drill down on, that if it all comes together, you'll be able to kick off and hopefully hang for a while against Oklahoma. Doesn't look like it or feel like it right now, based on where the Oklahoma program's at and where the Nebraska program's trying to get. But if things can continue to get moving in the right direction, all those things need to come together for you to have a chance week 1, week 0, week 3, right? I mean, it's this buildup. And when it comes to getting that week 2 or make it week 1 game either transferred or scheduled after week 0, I get it. This team needs to play. They need to play in friendly conditions, i.e. in front of 90,000 to see a red, and they need to win, right? They win. Their confidence continues to build up. That confidence gets built up. Maybe they play in a big game and aren't gun shy, because most of the kids, and I'm not making excuses, I'm just talking about the reasoning behind wanting to get more home games. You do not and you cannot sacrifice Oklahoma for that, and they're not going to, thank God. But this team has a lot of guys that have tested off the charts. They have the athletes. They have guys that can play. They need to win, and they need to see that realized on the field versus during practice or what they're doing when it comes to strength and conditioning. They're as big and as strong as their opponent. They got to quit committing penalties or turnovers that help the opponent out, that ultimately ends up beating Nebraska. So if Nebraska can wheel and deal and find a way to get out of Illinois week 1 with a win against Bielema, and then you come home and you have somebody you should trounce week 2, you get a good win over Buffalo, maybe week 3 before Oklahoma, maybe you're 2-1 or 3-0 going into Norman. And that feels a hell of a lot better than this choppiness. You've already experienced a lifetime of choppiness with this COVID crap last year as a player and as a coach. So if you don't get what you want, you just kind of roll with the punches. But ideally, set this team up for some success. There's no win guaranteed anymore. There just isn't with Nebraska football. But set it up favorably where you at least got a couple of home games scheduled in before you got to go to Norman. And as either a chance to continue some momentum after a win at Illinois or a chance to bounce back if you fall at Illinois.
I don't see necessarily why it's 100% necessary to schedule a game in that week 1 time slot, just because, Buffalo's coming to town the next week. These guys haven't played in front of a full Memorial Stadium in, what? It'll be 2 years by that point, just about. So why not go play week 0, take the notes you're going to take, go work on them, and then have your first game in front of the Sea of Red be a game against a good Buffalo team.
2 weeks to prep for Buffalo.
2 weeks to prep for Buffalo, and then your first game when you're going to be all juiced up in front of 90,000 because it's been so long is going to be in front of a good team as opposed to let's be honest,
whoever
an easy win. That's what the goal would be. Why not save that energy? I get the argument.
I think the take is this: you get better by playing.
Yes, of course.
And the more you can consecutively do it, you've heard the rest versus rust, and not that just taking a week off, but you don't want to get started and then just stop. So I get it. So I hope they can get things tailored the way they want them. But back to the who and the what of Oklahoma. How did this idea even get out there? Eric Olson asked some questions here towards Frost about the Oklahoma game and, what's the deal with it. Here's the full question and answer.
Scott, wanted to loop back to what Parker was asking about on Oklahoma, just a couple follow-ups. Was it you or somebody else specifically that even suggested to take a look at canceling Oklahoma? And then the second part of it is, what's your comment on the narrative that got out there about it was Nebraska trying to duck Oklahoma?
Well, I grew up on Nebraska, Oklahoma. I can't count the number of times I was in Memorial Stadium in the snow and other times in November watching those games. Mike Rozier's games and Billy Sims, and that's my favorite rivalry in sports because it's the one I grew up around. I will tell you, too, our players are excited to take their chances against a really good team. I'm sure Oklahoma, like they have been recently, is going to be one of the best teams in the country. Our players are excited to play it. I think the whole narrative and conversation started on ways to fix the budget windfalls that we've had. There's some schools, I think, that have cut sports and cut salaries and done a lot of other things. And like I said, I give Bill a lot of credit. He was committed to keeping everything intact and giving our student athletes opportunities in every sport, men and women. So I think that the conversation was started to figure out a way to get more revenue to the university. I'm certainly excited about any chance to, like I said, have more home games early in the season. For us in the situation we're in, to only play one home game before October doesn't make a lot of sense. So we're excited to play that game. I hope that we can do something with the schedule to make sure our fans can get in and see us sooner and more often.
More on the exchange. It was a follow-up.
So was it you or Bill or somebody else that even broached the idea?
Yeah, I
Someone had
don't
to throw it
remember
out
I don't remember where the conversation started for sure. I just know with a $40-50 million cut to last year's budget, I think any and all things were on the table. I think the conversation even evolved after the game in Ireland was canceled. I think the first thing we did was start looking for home games for week 1 and then looking for other options. I'm glad it landed the way it did. I just hope that we can make some kind of alterations. I think Bill's mentioned it too, to make sure our fans can get in and see us sooner and we can get recruits on campus sooner.
Last thought from Frost to Olson on the Oklahoma saga.
So you're saying unequivocally that this is a game that you want?
I'm excited to play it. I'll tell you, our kids want to play it. When they heard the news, our leadership group called a meeting and wanted me there to make sure that they had an opportunity to play against one of the best teams in the country.
Thank you.
So there you go. We go back to that day, that Friday of, what's going on here with Nebraska, Oklahoma. And you had McMurphy's report at 8:57 a.m. Central Time, and then you had a response finally by Nebraska at 3. Well, here's part of the reason for the timeline. If the leadership group's like, dude, what the hell? We're not going to get to play Oklahoma. That's garbage. We need to call coach and put a stop to this. So the players clearly want to take their shot at one of the best.
Yeah, I heard that at the end, though. You said you can say unequivocally that you want to play this game. You said, well, I know the players want to play.
You never got like a clear answer to it other than it's on, thank the Lord. Steve Warren's with us next on Hail Varsity.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
More thoughts on spring ball. We'll dive into some more topics: culture, fans, wide receiver room, how big a team Nebraska is. We welcome in a big-time black shirt, a national champion, and an NFLer, and doing great work in the community and with local athletes. Steve Warren of the Dream Foundation and Warren Academy. Can find Steve on Twitter at Steve_Warren96, at Dream_org on Twitter, also at Warren_Academy on Twitter. And Steve, good to see you, man. How was Arizona? My time in Arizona was great. I know you took a quick breather before this showcase gets kicked off. What you doing, man?
Oh, it was good. It was a few days in the sun and relaxing by the pool. I always feel like I come back from vacation more tired than I left, though, for some reason. But that's probably just that I had to drag my kids with me this time. They always wear me out. But
Yeah.
It was good, man. It was good to get away. Now back to work.
That's right. Hunkering down. And, the Open Underclassmen Showcase is Saturday. And, Steve, let folks know a little bit about what you've done and what you're doing with the Warren Academy, obviously when it comes to training athletes, but also what this showcase can provide.
The showcase is a tool that athletes can use to get verified numbers, which they're going to need for scouts and recruiters, so they can get on the radar. The media outlets will be there. We're partnered with Nebraska Preps,
Okay.
and also Rivals and other groups will be there. 247 Sports, so they'll get exposure from that as well. And depending on how they perform, they'll get a write up about themselves and be able to use that and help build their profile on their platform. We'll also have skills and drills, so we'll be not only just, working on getting them more exposure through their testing and getting them verified measurements, but also giving them a chance to showcase themselves skill-wise. There'll be some smaller colleges in attendance. The larger ones are still on a non-contact period, but the smaller schools will be there looking at some of the kids. So there's exposure from the media and from the college coaches, and it'll be good for those kids to get out and early in the spring, it's always good to kind of get your numbers and see where you're at. And that's kind of why we're doing ours a little bit earlier than everybody else is doing theirs, just so the kids can use this before they go to camp to know what they need to work on beforehand, and then hopefully get some numbers that they can use and get on the radar.
Steve Warren is with us, Hail Varsity Radio. The showcase is going to be from 10 to 3 on Saturday at the Omaha Sports Complex, Warren Academy, 147th in Giles in Omaha. And you had verified testing in the 40, the pro agility, the vertical, also specific drills when it comes to a kid's position group. But Steve, you've had a number of kids that you've trained and your coaches have trained that are playing major D1 ball. That's awesome, and those kids a lot of times get on the radar, but there's so much opportunity out there, isn't there, for kids, maybe not at D1, but maybe a D2, or pick a program in the state or out of state where if kids want to continue their career after high school, this is a great idea, at least to help get on the radar.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different opportunities for kids. Of course, everybody wants to go play Division I football, but there's great football, there's great experiences at the lower levels as well. And we're always preaching to our kids that if you don't get that D1 opportunity, doesn't mean that you're going to have a terrible college experience. I've had a lot of friends that played Division II, played NAIA, and had the time of their lives, and went and got free education out of it. So that's the way to look at it is, if you don't play Division I, it's not the end of the world. Everybody wants to make it to that level, and of course you should strive to make it to that level. But if you don't, there's still opportunities out there. And so we try to open up the door to expose kids to all the different colleges and the different levels of play around here. And we've had kids that played at every level, and I've never had one come back and say they've regretted it.
Steve, a topic today that Matt Lubick focused in on was confidence, and I think that has a part, too, with Coach Frost talking about wanting to get maybe an extra home game ahead of Buffalo after the Illinois opener. This team's got talent, Nebraska does, but they need to build that confidence. And, is that something you're able to witness with the Warren Academy? Yeah, kids are getting better, but they're also growing their confidence, correct? With the training, they see it translate onto the field. Is that something you take pride in?
Yeah, absolutely. We see the kids not only growing physically, but their maturity levels growing, and along with that, comes with the confidence. And once they get to a point where they put in the work, they've done the training, they've listened to the coaches, and then they go out on the field and they can apply it. And it takes just that one time for it to click, and then you see the confidence grow instantly. So we're always trying to make sure that kids understand that, it's a process. So it's not going to happen overnight, but belief in yourself is key. Like, if you don't believe in yourself, nobody else is.
That process is easier said than done, isn't it, man? With patience.
It is.
How have you been able to?
A lot easier said than done.
Yeah, how have you been able to preach that patience to the kids?
It's really just consistency. Just keep the same message, keep the same approach, making sure that kids celebrate the little successes. Sometimes people just look for the big things all the time, and they have to think about the little things that they're achieving. And, getting better in one area is still a success. You may not reach the pinnacle of where you're trying to be at, but every day if you're coming in and working, you're going to continue to get better. So you have to celebrate the little things just as much as you celebrate the big things.
Steve Warren's with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. And Steve, it takes hours and hours of preparation just to get that, that one chance, whether it be in high school football, college football, what have you. So where do you stand in the kind of the argument that the two sides of the multi-sport athlete in high school trying to use multiple sports to get themselves prepared, or the guys that specialize in one sport and spend the rest of the year training to get that chance?
Obviously you see it on both sides. There's guys that play multiple sports and they are successful. There's guys that focus on one sport and they're successful as well. I'm more on the side of being a multi-sport athlete because I think that you can never take away the experiences of competing year-round. Once you go into, training mode all the time, you're not competing all the time. But when you're a multi-sport athlete, you're constantly in competition, and you're diversifying your athleticism, right? Like, you're learning how to move in different sports. You're learning how to get coached by different people. And that's important, of not just hearing the same voices over and over again. Because sometimes those voices get repetitive, and sometimes those voices are only telling you what you want to hear. So it's always good to get a different voice and to hear, a different language of when it's coming to be, being athletic and being competitive. And I'm more on the side of, be an athlete, especially when you're young. once you're done and you go to college, like you're going to specialize. But if you can be successful and play multiple sports, why not? Like we're always telling our kids, like go play as many sports as you can. You don't need to specialize yet. Like there's really no reason for it in our opinion. Like unless you're just not good at the other sport, you're going to sit on the bench. I can see that. But if you're a kid that's going to be competitive and you're going to be starting, you're going to be playing or contributing, go play.
Steve Warren's with us. The Open Underclassmen Showcase with the Warren Academy going on Saturday from 10 to 3. And for more information on that, can log on joindream.org, the Dream Foundation, the Warren Academy. Steve, got a couple minutes left. And what are you looking at for Nebraska as a black shirt, as a Husker national champion? What are you interested in for Nebraska this spring?
Well, I think just, like you said before, the confidence level. We hope that the talent level is growing. Unfortunately, we haven't seen it happening too much in the last few years, but we've seen them get better on defense for sure. Mm-hmm. So defensively, I'm looking for them to take the next step, especially with the guys that they have coming back. And be more dominant and hopefully be able to change some of those close games into wins on the defensive side of the ball and help the offense out if they're struggling and score a little bit ourselves on defense. So defensively, I'm excited to see those guys that are coming back and being contributors and hopefully leading this team in a different direction this year. I know they're going to be kind of young at some of the skill positions on offense, and they've lost a few guys here and there, but sometimes it's better to, so there's addition by subtraction, right? So we'll see if that's one of those things, and we'll see if the team is gelled together or coming together by some of these losses that they've had, in personnel. But, hopefully their confidence is growing, and that's, confidence is key as an athlete. Everybody at the Division I level is talented, right? Or you're not going to be there. But everybody doesn't have the confidence and doesn't have the mentality. So hopefully that we see the confidence and the mentality grow, and that translates into wins.
A guy that's done a lot of work with you that Nebraska's happy to have is Thomas Fidone. And, he's a guy in a tight end room that's long on the tooth with the experience there, but there's some positive returns already just from the winter conditioning with Thomas. And just a quick thought here, about a minute on Thomas and what he can bring athletically to that tight end room.
He's a competitor. That's the one thing that I've always loved about Thomas, that anytime there was a chance to come out and compete or to catch balls or to get some work in, he was one of the first guys through the door, and he never shied away from that. So I think that's one thing they're going to get from him, is a guy that loves to come to work and loves to compete, and hopefully that's contagious because you need those guys, and you need everybody to have that mentality. But athletically, he's a very skilled, very, very skilled tight end. So I think that if they use him right, if they get him in the right positions, that he'll be a mismatch out there on the field and be able to use that size and that skill to make plays.
Coach McBride told us last Thursday that he thinks you led the team one year in interceptions. You had 3 one year. Is that true?
That was actually Wilt.
It was Wilt.
Actually, was the one that was actually Jason Wilt that got the interceptions. I was the one batting the balls down. My hands weren't soft enough, so I just knocked the balls out of the air.
Okay, so we'll talk to Charlie here in 25 minutes, and he's like, "Yeah, Steve may have had the best hands on the team." I was like, "We'll have to tell Steve that."
Wilt had a couple interceptions. I wasn't lucky enough to catch pluck any out of the air.
All right, we'll make sure Coach gets it on the money. But hey, you got the assist there, you got the deflection. I like it. Go be a part of the Underclassmen Showcase with the Warren Academy if you've got young athletes 2022 through 2024. And joindream.org is where you can log on and find more info. Husker Standout and Warren Academy founder Steve Warren with us. Steve, have a good week, and congrats on this Saturday.
Hey, same to you guys, and thanks for having me.
Appreciate you. There he is, Steve Warren with us on Hail Varsity Radio.
And we're back.
Fellas, think we could listen to the radio listen?
On Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Yes! That's awesome!
Coming up, we'll have some comments from Coach Chinander. Charlie McBride will be with us. Mondays with Charlie. 5 after the hour, and thanks to Steve Warren, the Warren Academy showcase on Saturday. Good to talk with Steve there, and some spring ball thoughts from Steve. We'll have that interview up here in a moment. ESPNLincoln.com. Also on Twitter, if you want to catch Steve's comments if you just caught part of it. So a couple more thoughts here from Scott Frost. Numbers to get in, 466-3776, 800-825-5865, or email chris@HaleVarsity.com. So we kind of dove into the confidence discussion point, and that was hit on by Coach Lubick. And I think a cleaner picture, think about your own lives during COVID and just how disruptive it has been or may still be with work, with kids, with finances, with life, right? Where it was so choppy because maybe you came down with it, maybe you had a loved one, whatever the case, and it wasn't normal. There wasn't consistency. And that hit the football team and every football team, and it just kind of depends on what type of team you have and you are. And I think you're going to be able to see, again, Scott Frost will touch on it here in a moment, but I think you're going to see a different team. You should, anyway. You should see a different team fundamentally this 2021 season than you saw last year. I think that's so important, and Coach McBride always touches on it, the fundamentals. Are you tackling? Are you using technique? Are you blocking? Are you holding? Are you turning the ball over? Are you committing penalties? I mean, all those things that have plagued Nebraska football for a while. But Derek Peterson from Hale Varsity asked about culture, and that's been kind of an ongoing topic here. And is it getting better? I mean, I was encouraged as much as I was discouraged by the Oklahoma narrative and conversation a few weeks back that really got addressed finally today by Coach Scott Frost, the thinking behind it, and really kind of called out about it, not negatively, but just some direct questions by Eric Olson on it. Where's this team at culturally? Because the culture is going to help with the confidence. Confidence is going to help with the between the white lines portion of action. And that's where Nebraska football needs to get better, but it starts way before you kick off. Here is Frost on culture.
Well, culture isn't just a big deal the last couple of years. I think it's always a big deal. It probably gets talked about until people are tired of hearing about it. But when you have good camaraderie, good leadership, good culture built on your team, you give yourself a great chance. Those things aren't easy to build. I walked into a program here when I transferred back where the culture was already there, and we just had to assimilate to it and then try to pass it on to the next group. And we've been in a process of trying to get the thing built here the way we want it. You can't do it without good leaders. I think that's why it's important that we have some of the guys coming back to join us again this year. Some of the young guys that we have need to step up and grab the mantle and be the leaders. We're closer than we've ever been of having a culture the way that the coaching staff wants it. I think the key to that is making sure the players take ownership in it, that they feel comfortable around each other, that they care about each other and willing to fight for each other. Those things are tough to build when you can't even be in the same meeting room through a COVID year. So we had some ground to make up there, and made a conscious effort to get our guys around each other in some of those situations, and feel good about the teammates we have on this team right now and where we are. We still have a lot to do and a lot to build on, but I think those things help.
Are the younger guys going to follow and listen to the older guys? I think it really kind of comes down to that. Was that always uniform last year? Doesn't sound like it. Don't know that for a fact, but are the older guys that are trying to set the example, and are the guys getting snaps in important games and important moments? A, are they getting the job done? B, are they guys that you can learn from? And C, are you listening to them? What's that older? I've always, in my life, when I've had an older person in front of me for whatever it is, and they're kind enough to show me the ropes on things, I've tried to absorb, be respectful, and then go execute it, right? Because someone took the time to show you the way, so to speak. And Elijah, I'm sure, is a guy who played ball in one of the more revered programs in high school ball, Southeast football. I mean, they've been good for decades. You played a lot in your career, and you played some early. You were the right size, had the right mentality, had the right work ethic, you had the talent. But there's somebody in front of you at some point you had to listen to and watch, observe, and soak in what they were doing.
I had multiple guys that ended up going and playing for the Huskers in front of me I got to learn from. I got Gerald Foster. He was a senior when I was a freshman. I had Finn Anderson. He was a senior when I was a sophomore. I played with a guy like Brock Bando, who, even though he transferred to IMG, we were the same age. I learned a lot from him just because he was a high-level guy. It's vitally important that the coaches don't have time to sit down one-on-one individually with every single guy on the team and say,
"Are you getting it?"
Exactly. Whereas you can go to an older guy and say, "Hey, I think I get this technique. Am I doing this right? You want to look at me do this pass set and see if there's anything I can improve
Why am I
on?"
not playing more? Well, let me tell you why you're not playing more. Your technique's sloppy. You don't weigh enough, or you weigh too much. You don't know what play we're running. I mean, a peer can give it back.
Oh yeah, a guy who's
Completely give
got
it back.
and he's gotten the coaching from he's going to give you the exact same thing the coach is going to give you, as long as he's learned from the coach and he's taken it and implemented it in his game. If you see it in his game, you can ask him and say, "What did you work on to get this down? Because I am just struggling with it right now."
The key is to not have, like, I didn't take parenting lessons from Alec Baldwin. All right. Right. Took them from my dad. Right. You don't want the Alec Baldwin of players there giving horrible examples. Right. You don't want to poison the well. What can Adrian do? What's his next step? This was Scott Frost on where his quarterback can go.
Yeah, starting with Adrian, I expect Adrian to be the player that he expects to be this year, that everybody expects him to be. He's done some things in a Nebraska uniform that are exceptional. I really want to see him limit the mistakes and the bad plays. Talked to him about this, but the Rutgers game, the last game of the year, was an example. I think he was 24 or 28 or something like that, with a bunch of yards rushing and a bunch of yards passing and 2 fumbles and 2 interceptions and one other really bad play. And other than that, he played like a all-conference player. If he can make sure and be efficient and not make those mistakes, he's got enough talent to carry us as far as we want to go. Excited to see his continued development and growth.
So let's go back to Adrian, and I think with part of the why is there so many turnover issues with Adrian? Why are there inconsistencies with him? Does he have talent? Yes, we've seen it. Is his health where it needs to be, and can he stay healthy? And is he getting help from the other 10? Is the offensive line going to be at a point where they can give a good run game or provide holes for a good run game? Is there a couple of backs behind Adrian that can carry the football so it's not Adrian or whoever at quarterback all the time running the quarterback draw, and you got wideouts and get open? I mean, I think there's a point where he was trying to do too much. And now, it's year 4. Get some help around him and let the game come to him. Some final thoughts, Hour 1. It's Hail Varsity. We're presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
And now,
back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Charlie McBride's 10 minutes away, and then room for you next hour. Hail Varsity Radio presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Our friends at West Blue Realty, eager to help you move. So if you're looking for that residential home in Lincoln or surrounding area, give West Blue Realty a ring today. Log on, westbluerealty.com. For a limited time, you mention Hail Varsity. West Blue can provide up to $1,000 on the closing of your next home purchase. Tom Luby, give Tom a shout at 402-540-3768. Kelly Hofschneider, fantastic as well, at 402-202-2312. It pays to work with West Blue, westbluerealty.com. Get an appointment today, 1120 K Street, Suite 200. So another thought here from Scott Frost before we head into Coach McBride. Specifically, the question: Are you going to be less reliant on the quarterback run game? Fair question. I love the quarterback run game as a complement, not as the only option with the offense. But here was Coach Frost's response.
I want to really dial in on fundamentals this year. When you talk about getting ready for a season without a spring ball and a fall camp, some of the improvements that we needed to make on some of the basic things are tougher to do when you're getting a team ready to play week one with a broken fall camp. So we're really going to focus on being a physical team, on fundamentals up front, fundamentals in the run game, on defense. I think if we get really good at those things, then some of our base things will work a little bit better. Then we can get creative with some others. But I told the team we need to be able to hang our hat on the things that we do and do them well, have those turn into positives for us. If we can lean on those things, then we'll be able to make some plays with some other creative things.
So that is Scott Frost. Do we have time for the size of the O-line or not? Yeah. All right. Well, back to the offensive philosophy. Will Nebraska be more power-based? And here's how Scott answered that.
Yeah, I guess it's safe to say that. A lot of the plays that people run in spread, Sam, are the same plays that we used to run in shotgun. It's just from a different formation. It's still zone. It's still power. It's still counter. It's still outside zone, wide zone. You can be physical in those things, whether you're snapping the ball to a quarterback under center or in shotgun. And that's where we've needed to improve. I think we have made improvements. Still have some improvement to make, but it's certainly going to give us a better chance to compete and win in the physical battle when we're a bigger, stronger, faster football team. So between recruiting and the work Zach and his group's done, I think we're going to have a chance to fight with and hopefully win our share of the battles all year, and size definitely helps.
That's what she said.
Thank you, Michael Scott. That episode was on yesterday.
There's so many.
The one where it was the giant review of HR by corporate, and then Toby had to sit through it all, and Michael invokes Dwight and all of the spies, and it was just really weird and awkward about how Michael Scott runs the show. Thank you for dropping in. That's what she said.
Yeah, I've been waiting to use that button on the show for a while now, and I finally saw my chance.
More sophomoric humor in hour 2. Yes. All right. Well, hey, you got big wideouts, big running backs, giant offensive line. Just go ground and pound it, baby. Charlie McBride on the way. Hour 2 at Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Back with you, it's Hour 2. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Plenty from Scott Frost last hour as he met the media, getting ready for spring ball as it gets underway tomorrow. Hear from Coach Chenander here this hour. We'll have some thoughts on Husker baseball, another sweep for the Big Red. Barry Alvarez retiring at some point, and the Sweet 16 now the Elite 8. We welcome in Mr. Blackshirt, Charlie McBride, Mondays with Charlie. Coach, it's nice to spend a few minutes with you again on a Monday. How are you doing?
Good. Perfect day.
Yeah, we've got 40-mile-per-hour winds, but it's at least 75 outside.
We got winds that blown on the other side of the lake. That's for them that we worry about.
Yeah, no kidding, right? Not here yet. Well, I want to start off with a lot of different topics with spring ball. And, one thing that was kind of focused on was, again, this whole topic of confidence, be it the scheduling situation or guys getting the playbook down and then playing faster to help build their confidence. But what was it about the Husker power mentality? All the winter conditioning, and specifically with the strength and conditioning program, their testing performance numbers when it comes to drills and workouts, that was special to you. That was special to a lot of the guys, wasn't it? when it was right around the corner of, all right, here's some guys performing on pro day for NFL scouts. Great. Well, by the way, here's your winter testing. It's kind of like your final exam. What did that do for guys?
Well, I think probably the thing is with the whole winter program was built around players working together, and getting, and especially for the young guys to get to know each other and to get, it's kind of a time that, you go right into the summer. You got to kind of look at it as though it's one continuous thing. When you have spring ball, I think most of the players, rely on a good lifting program and a good agility program and strength program overall. So I think that a lot of times will motivate them. If they work at it, they'll improve. A lot of times some players, have other issues, weight issues, maybe overweight type of things that can block a little bit of that stuff because they don't take care of themselves in the off season. So there's some of that, but I think when you look at it all, when they start seeing the pro scouts coming in and they start seeing these things, that kind of motivates them a little bit and adds to some of them that really want to try to get to the next level. Believe it or not, there's some guys that just want to get a good education and they love the game of football, and if they can play, that's fine. If they can't, that's fine too. So you got a little different mentality, but the winning part is all part of it. And you find guys that don't have an interest to go on that are really good college players. Maybe they're not big enough or this or that, but they're really good players, and they're just happy as heck just to be part of it.
That mentality of winning is so key. Did you ever sense a team you were a part of that had confidence issues in big games?
That didn't?
No, did they? Was there ever a sense that guys or a team had confidence issues in big games?
Well, I don't think we ever had guys that didn't think they couldn't win.
Okay.
I think through the program and through the leadership part of it, it was really important. I don't ever remember. Well, I know coaches don't. We go into every game, we can win it. And I would think the players are on that same level. That they're not going out there just to pass the time of day. They're out there to try to upset somebody if they're said to be better. So it's not it's a continual thing, and that's why I've always said you never take anybody for granted. When you're a good football team and you know it, you better be careful, and you better not ever take anybody for granted. That I think I've only gone to one game. In reality, I know we haven't had a great. That last 3 years or so hadn't been great, but the Michigan game at Michigan was the only game that I was really thought that our players, didn't try hard. It was, I think you beat yourself is what you do.
Sure.
Most of the time when you do win, or you get to a point where you've got too much of a load on your mind, and that's why I think spring practice is really, really important. That you fundamentally and get to play your base, the defenses you want to play without mistakes. And I know that we had 20 days now. They got 15. So you got to be careful if you're going to load it all on them at once. You can't expect them to come in and be perfect when they come in. So I remember just the fact that we probably didn't put everything in, that we had during spring ball. We put in the stuff that was the heart and soul of our defense. But the important thing was that everybody understood what they're doing.
Get the base down, correct? That's it.
Yeah,
get the basics down.
If the better they know the defense, the better they'll play.
Mm-hmm. No, that makes a lot of sense. And, there's a lot of guys on this team. When we look at this spring season, just how important it is, because they'll really get a chance to develop maybe for the first time since they've been on campus. It's not that they haven't been working or there's not been practice, but this last year's just been nuts, Coach.
Well, that's the hardest thing for a player to do, is try to get himself out there and be in mental stress and not be able to play like he can play. And I think, we didn't care if people knew what we were doing. We're just going to play it better than they can play it.
Yeah.
We weren't tricky. I mean, we had things that we were pretty much positive, you never say never, but that our players knew exactly what to do. And we had things we could fall back on if we got something we didn't expect. Mm-hmm. And, defenses that we could adjust anything in. So, if it gives you time. In other words, if you saw something that you didn't work on or you didn't play, then you have to have a defense you can, your base defense you should be able to play everything in. Mm. And you go right back to that until you can, as coaches, get it straightened out on the sideline as fast as you can and, adjust to it. Sometimes teams can't do that because players aren't that far along. Mm. And if it's a real young team, that's hard to do. If it's an older team, it's easy to do. They understand it. They've done it before. It's not a big brain thing for them. It's they just go do it when you make the adjustment.
Well, you've answered the question where fans are out there screaming, "Why don't they make adjustments in the second half?" Well, maybe you're trying, and maybe it's not quite a two-way street yet with the adjustments to be made and to be executed. Correct?
Well, what I did was, if you make the adjustments, I think a lot of times if you play your base defense, you play it well. You play some blitzes, you have some pressure packages, but the ability to be able to change your pressure packages and not change the coverage.
Right.
Change the assignments of the guys up front. But when you start changing your coverage, a lot of times, and you get too many coverages or too many of this and too many of that. A lot of times I blame it on the coaches. Sometimes coaches want to be rocket scientists, and they can stop everything, but they forgot that the player can't handle it. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's important that when you go through the spring, you realize, the younger players aren't going to quite catch on. Like the older players know the terminology, and all of this stuff is completely new to them. All these young guys that came in early in the semester, they came in all excited they're going to have spring practice, and they find out all the stuff that's going to be poured on their heads. They're going to start wondering, maybe I better think this over.
Yeah, absolutely. Feel overwhelmed.
Because there is a lot of things to learn in 15 days.
Yeah. Charlie McBride's with us Mondays with Charlie Hale, Varsity Radio, talking spring ball and its importance. Coach, I want to talk to you about Barry Alvarez, and the news kind of broke over the weekend that he's going to retire, and it sounds like sometime this summer. What's your reaction to Barry hinting at retirement, and we don't know when, but, I know how close you are with Coach Christ and how close you are with Wisconsin because you coached up there, but what's your overall takeaway with Coach Alvarez?
Well, you look at his age. You want to have some time in your life when you're not, don't have the pressure of running a program, and after a while that gets old. I mean, it's not old, when you're a competitive guy like Barry is, but because you're by your competitiveness, you're almost forced to do it. Force sounds like a bad word, but to do a good job like he's done and to continue doing it, not to fall back. I think a lot of times pretty soon you realize that, it's time for you just feel it, that it's time to go. I mean, he's in his, middle 70s probably right now, and, that's a long time for a guy to be, be doing the things he's been doing and be involved in athletics ever from the time he started to, and the time going through Nebraska and going through Iowa and all those things and recruiting and becoming a head coach and going on and doing all the things he's accomplished. I think he feels like he's probably done what he can do, and there might be somebody younger that has a little more juice than he's turning out. But I think it's I think he's doing the right thing. I mean, it's you can't. I just don't think your mind. A lot of guys kid themselves. I know as time went on, Frank Broyles was having some mental problems, and trying to stay with the job and do it, and I mean, pretty soon you get old enough and that dementia's going to set in and everything, and then pretty soon you're not doing a good enough job to handle everything.
Coach, before we let you go, Coach Frost talked this morning about releasing the Husker performance numbers from their winter conditioning program. And I saw on Twitter just now that they've released 5 guys who had a score of 500-plus points in both their strength index and their performance index. That's Damian Jackson, Chris Kolarovich, Deontay Williams, Cam Jurgens, and Cam Taylor-Britt. So just what does a score of 500-plus in their strength index and performance index even really mean? That's kind of a foreign concept to me.
Well, I can't tell you because I don't know what their how they grade their players. Mm-hmm. I would guess that if there's some guys that I don't know if they do it on an improvement from the beginning of the testing when they test the first time to they test the last time or the final test before spring ball. And that may be some guys that have really improved in a hurry. A lot of times the guys that are really already in good shape and have been around and have done things probably may not, make that improvement, but yet, you don't. They're not to be criticized for it because you can only do so much. I mean, we used to say, some kids say I can put on 25 pounds in the bench press or whatever it is in the summer, and I'll tell you what, if you do, you're Superman. And I always looked if the guy could put 15 pounds on or something like that. I thought that was improvement. Mm-hmm. Because it's not easy for some of these things to happen. Once you hit a level, you hit a wall. Mm-hmm. Once you hit the wall, that's where you have to, that's where it doesn't happen as fast anymore. And so I don't know all the things they're putting into their grading system. Mm. But, I think a lot of it, is going to depend on the player himself and his effort. I know we had players that would go out and, in spring ball and actually run after practice and do some things, to try to get in better shape because they just felt like they, even in spring ball, they could play better if they were in better shape. And then that's by running. And so we had some kids that would go out and run, in the off days and stuff like that.
Charlie McBride's with us, Mondays with Charlie. Coach, we'll talk next Monday. Stay out of that wind.
Okay, I can do that.
Thanks for the time today.
Okay, guys. Talk to you later. Bye now.
Chime in 402-466-ESPN or email the show, Chris@HaleVarsity.com.
Just try me.
Back to Hale Varsity Radio.
Good stuff from Mr. Blackshirt Charlie McBride on spring ball. His thoughts, his takeaway as the spring goes on. We'll dive a little bit further in. Wide open the rest of the show for you. You want to chime in? 466-3776, 800-825-5865. You excited as a Nebraska fan for the return of spring football? It has been a while, and you you talk to older players, and they just it's another grind to get through spring ball, but it's so vital for the young guys, and we'll see if within the next few weeks Nebraska can get things moved from November 13th to September 4th. It's one of my main takeaways. I mean, there's a lot talked about and a lot of emphasis placed on Samori Toure about what he can do and has done already for that wide receiver room, kind of coming in and being a pro, not only a lead by example guy, but a wow factor with him. He's going to start out in the slot, and just the overall size of Nebraska's team, that's all well and good. But from a confidence in a build-up and a launching point, that's important for Nebraska to get things, the little things right, this continuous process. You're now in phase 2 into spring ball off of winter conditioning. But as we look to the future here, if September 4th can be the new home game for Nebraska, Louisiana, Southeast Louisiana, that would be beneficial, where you get a chance maybe to start 3-0 or 2-1 or get a win while also having a home game and an advantage because you're playing at home. Last thought here from Scott Frost, special teams was discussed, and Coach Dawson is going to head that up. So not only is it a title, but you've got a guy that's been a part of many different programs in his career, that he's had that on his plate. He's had the ability to be a special teams coach and coordinator and help kind of distribute what he needs to distribute. We'll hear from Coach Chenander in a little bit. We'll dive into some Husker baseball and some Sweet 16 thoughts. But here is Frost. Last thought here from Scott Frost for us today on special teams and Coach Dawson.
Yeah, last year we divvied it up to the entire coaching staff. That model was tough. That model was especially tough in a COVID year. Mike Dawson's going to do it for us now. He's been a special teams coach at a lot of different places and at the 1A level. So he's going to be the lead for us on all the special teams and certainly get a lot of help from the other assistants, just like we had last year. But Mike's going to take the lead on it, and as well as coaching outside linebackers. So excited for much needed progress there.
It's got to happen, and it sounds like it's an emphasis, and that's to win special teams. Bill Bush is going to be a defensive analyst. He's been great on special teams and phenomenal as a recruiter over his college career. Here's Frost on Bush.
Bill's obviously an accomplished coach. I think it's works out great for us and for him. He's got family in Lincoln. I don't think without that we'd have an opportunity to have him in the role that we have him in. But Bill's going to help primarily with the defense, just off the field schematics and things with helping our coaches. I'm sure he'll give a hand to Coach Doss on special teams too. He brings a lot of expertise to the table that I think our coaches will be able to utilize.
So, the question was asked today, what do you expect from this defense? And I think it's fair to pin on them strength of the team. Okay, they are, by numbers, by experience, they are going to be the strength of your football team because so much is coming back. They've also been the unit that's shown the most improvement, right? You saw them get better. You saw them be more physical. You saw them really step up against the run, which is so key in the Big Ten. There's things they can get better in, but they are going to be that flag-carrying part of the football team that you can hope day in, day out, every Saturday, they're going to show up to work and win their phase of the football game and then help out the offense. Coach Chenander today just was able to expand a little bit here on just how much the defense can improve.
If you look at kind of what we had going on last year, the missed tackles, were down from whatever. I had it on a piece of paper this morning, 11 something down to 8 something per game. If you can get that down a little lower and you can hold teams, I think we were giving up about 5 explosives a game last year. If you can get that down another couple, and then if you can find a way to create 2 or more turnovers a game, those are the improvements. Then you're talking about what seems like a little thing that we're talking about turns out to be a huge thing when you're talking about where you're ranked in defense and the amount of points you give up and ultimately the amount of wins you get. So I think you always have to, you can expect a lot of improvement, but you have to put it in front of the guys in obtainable situations. And if you can break it down as small as you can, and try to accomplish those goals, then a lot of improvement is very reachable.
So more from Chenander here when it comes to guys that are back on the defensive side of the ball.
I'm really pleased with those guys coming back. I think they're going to be very instrumental to what we're trying to do, and I'm just really happy when they all said they were coming back.
So let's turn to the young guys here. Let's turn to Jamari Butler, and let's turn to Nash Hutmacher. Let's look at some of those young pups, Braxton Clark. Phildarius Payne, not young, but let's see what can grow in his role. Here is Chenander on some of those young guys and some of the young pups, their goals for spring ball.
I love spring football because I think it's a great opportunity to work with guys like you mentioned, Blaze and Jamari, and a lot of other newer faces, guys that might have been here last year and redshirted and or were injured or didn't get a lot of reps. So I love spring football, being able to work with those guys and just watching those guys get better every day. Sometimes, like you mentioned, when you're in the middle of the season and you're game planning for an opponent and you're getting the first 1 or 2 groups ready. Sometimes there's not a ton of time that can be spent with those younger guys, but we all know that those younger guys are going to be, they're the foundation on what we've got to build for the future. So it's great in spring ball to be able to get hands-on with those guys and really watch them get meaningful reps and play alongside, the 1s and the 2s as we interject those guys in the lineup.
So back to the question here, what can this defense be? Defense was, fair to say, a pleasant surprise last year, right? You knew that you had a special player in Cam Taylor-Britt, but dude's making his first full-time role at corner. Not that he hadn't played it before, but he had played some safety for you. He'd played some corner, and man, was he dynamite along with that secondary. They really played well. They really were physical. They did a good job against the run when asked to, but, man, they were good against the pass. And the Penn State game is one bluebird you can take with you. Defensively, though, I think it's pretty obvious with where there's 2 areas Nebraska needs to gain. Do they have the personnel to make jumps? What type of next level can these guys who came back, where can they go, right? And can you get some more TFLs from a Damian Daniels? Can you get some more sacks from a Ben Stilley? I think you feel great about a Rodgers and Ty Robinson at the point of attack against the run. Their next step is to get after the quarterback a little bit. And it doesn't have to be for even a hit or a tackle, but move the dude off his spot, right? And from an outside linebacker standpoint, we'll hear from JoJo Doman here in about 15 minutes. JoJo's special because of what he can do in coverage, what he can do in just having a nose for reading an offense and then going and making a play. He was so key of some TFLs last year. But what about that opposite side, right? What do you get with that guy that can go get the quarterback? Because that is the one piece to this defense that will turn them from serviceable/good to good/ dare I say dominant. Okay, they've made strides against the run. They're not getting pushed around. There's some depth there. But, man, can they get after the quarterback? And then once you get after the quarterback, what happens? Well, you get some turnovers. Look at the turnovers they were able to create against Northwestern with a little bit of pressure. Look at the turnovers they were able to create against Purdue And they really beat the hell out of Purdue. I mean, that's a game you felt was throwback time because they were smoking the quarterback every other play. So that's where, and I honestly, Elijah, I don't know if they've got a guy on the roster right now that is Randy Gregory or Neil Smith. I mean, those are some greats I'm talking about, but give me a dude that can get after the quarterback. And do you have to scheme it up so you're blitzing somebody all the time? And if your secondaries is good and is experienced, then just ask them to lock down. But it was a luxury, 10, 11 years ago where you could just rush forward with a guy named Sue and Barry Turner and Pierre Allen and Jared Crick and drop 7 into coverage. Good luck finding a window. So that's Nebraska's next step is finding somebody or getting somebody after the quarterback and then also converting some of those pressures into takeaways.
And as you said, it's not all about actually getting the hit on the quarterback and getting the sack. It's about the guy that has to get chipped off the line by a tight end, and then the tight end has to worry about blocking a guy before he hits his route. Or it's a running back who doesn't get to swing out and get those easy 4 yards because there's a defensive end screaming off the edge, and he has to stay in and block that guy and make sure. It's not all about actually getting the sacks. It's about just disrupting the offense and disrupting the passing game enough that your secondary can cover the rest of the guys downfield, or your linebacker has more of a chance because the tight end has to stay in and chip the defensive end. And that's why having a pass rusher is so important. It's just because it can affect what an offense does. Like, their entire passing game can be changed because of one guy in the defensive line.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a game wrecker.
Yes.
If you do on that roster, if you have a game wrecker on that roster, it can let others go eat, and it can be game-changing for you. And some of those close ball games you've lost turn into wins. And that's kind of what we're talking about here for 2021, because you're in phase 2 of 4 phases for a successful 2021 season. Why'd JoJo come back? He'll tell you coming up here shortly on Hail Varsity Radio. We'll dive into some Husker baseball. Will Bolt needs to buy more brooms. Man, Husker baseball's rolling offensively. They took down the Gophers. And a couple of thoughts on Barry Alvarez stepping away. Hail Varsity continues. Great to be with you on a Monday. We're presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
He's in his 30s, but sounds like he was born with a stogie in one hand and a brew in the other.
Now, say my name.
It's Schmitty on Hail Varsity Radio.
I got the body of a taut, preteen Swedish boy.
So I'm a little frightened. Junior's been doing training for baseball, but he's doing training with a guy named Jose who's got a mullet and wears this 40 for 40 T-shirt around. That go over your head?
Yeah, a little bit.
Canseco.
I was wondering if that's where you're going, but I didn't know Canseco had a mullet.
Oh, yeah, dude. Yeah.
I just thought it was like the roids.
No. I mean, Canseco had, it wasn't the glorious curly mullet you'd have to feed in water, but it was one of those dark-haired, long mullets with the high, short sides.
Kind of like a, I'd almost call it like a lacrosse mullet. The type
like a schlong, yeah. Yeah, short here and then long in the back.
That's what it's called? I've heard the word schlong used for a much different context. I had no idea where you're going with that.
No, you've not heard it called that before.
No. I have heard schlong used for one.
No, I know. That's not what I'm using it for. Oh, wow. No, we got to refocus. It's going to turn into 2 giggling losers just pissing this segment away. Sorry.
That's the second middle school joke we've made today.
No, it wasn't. I mean, anywho, I got to pick him up from training later. So I hope he hits straight ball very far. Curveball I have trouble with. So listen, it's year 4. You've got fundamentals that are the emphasis here, clean football. But it's time to say adios to drive-killing fumbles, false starts, and do that attention to detail. it's encouraging. Listen, if you're JoJo Doman and you're Ben Stilley and you're Honus, you're a bunch of guys that one more year and one more good year of tape is important for your future endeavors. Same with JoJo Doman. But above all, their hearts kind of more in the right place with why they came back. The group, Cam Taylor-Britt, I mean, they want to go out a winner, and we're not talking about winning the whole bleeping thing, to continue with our major league movie drop theme, but legitimately, like, be a good football team, beat some teams that you're supposed to beat some teams that you want to beat, and then get to postseason. JoJo was asked, about the process today. Why'd you come back for a super senior year?
Yeah, a lot went into it. My personal development went into it, and my commitment to this program. Seeing it through, the idea I had when I came here was to return this place to the winning tradition that it ultimately is, and to create a culture that lasts beyond my time here. And with the opportunity to come back, just both of those doors are wide open, waiting for us to walk through them. So I'm really excited for this next year.
So JoJo Doman's going to be one of those guys, as he takes people under his wing, as he continues to ball, that he's going to be able to help Nebraska achieve this reality, or at least make progress towards it, of playing good football all the time. Now, I ask you this, can Nebraska play good football all the time? Do you think they're ready to start doing that? And I can say yes, if they follow through on the talk. And the talk right now is fundamentals this spring. You didn't have much of it last year. You had some young guys go in and play and didn't perform horribly. But you also had some old guys that went in and played, and they didn't perform horribly either, but they weren't as buttoned up as they should be. You just want a whole overall clean 2021, right? And we'll see if again, phase 2 of the 4 phases here can make that a reality. So when we look at more from JoJo Doman and what this team can be, JoJo touches on the rest of the crew. He told you about his decision from a cultural standpoint and wanting to leave football better than when I found it, right? But this was more from JoJo explaining a bigger picture with the rest of his crew coming back.
And then just with the decision of all the guys, we had talked about it. We actually got together after the season at my house and just kind of digressed on the season and how to move forward. And each individual had to make that decision for themselves, but also understanding that there is a power in numbers. And if we could get everybody back, that would be big for our defense and for this team. So it's awesome, and praise to God that we all came back and have this opportunity to really attack this next year and give it everything we got.
Last thought from JoJo Doman, his expectations. What's the expectation for the defense in 2021?
You should see leadership on all three levels: D-line, linebacker, and then the secondary. We're not invincible. We're going to get beat out there, but the way we rally and the way we hold down the fort and help control the game for our offense, getting more 3-and-outs, forcing more turnovers, and making the game easier on them, giving them more opportunities to score. That's what you're going to see from us.
Okay. So good on it. There's a lot of Nebraska football for you today. We'll have some more thoughts tomorrow. We'll run down Mitch Sherman, Rick Bezos, and former Nebraska defensive assistant, get his take on spring ball. Rick Kaczynski will be with us. Pretty busy week for us here on Hail Varsity Radio. You're going to want to check out the Steve Warren interview for sure. He caught up with us in hour 1, his take on spring ball, and also the Warren Academy. The upcoming showcase is Saturday, the 3rd of April, for underclassmen and also seniors at the high school level to kind of get on the radar. And Coach McBride went through the spring football, his takeaways. So Elijah, I know you retweeted the performance numbers. It sounds like Frost said about everybody except 7 people made pretty big-time improvements. And again, back to this confidence talking point, you have championship immortality from the 90s players. You also have their performance numbers listed and etched in stone. And you have guys that can put the work in during winter conditioning and hit numbers, be it agility or strength or what have you, and get close to what some of those greats from 20, 25 years ago achieved. That's also, look, you've put the work in, and now you've proven your performance. You've seen it. So that's just another little confidence booster that some of these guys can say, okay, man, here's the work I put in. Here's the result I got. I'm proud of what I did. See, it all worked out, and look how it compares to some of the guys that went on to win football. So physically, you've got some dudes down there that can go win you football games. Now it comes down to the mentality, and it comes down to knowing you can go out there and win, and trading in that hope and you can go out there and win. And that was also good that the leadership council said, hell no, we're playing Oklahoma. We'll wind down on Monday next.
Miss us?
Come here, brother. Give me a hug. Bring it in for the real thing.
We're on call for you. Catch the podcast at HailVarsity.com, the ESPN Lincoln app, or download them on iTunes.
Saddle up, partner.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Reminder about buckling up. 70% of people in fatal crashes in Nebraska not wearing a seatbelt. If used properly, a seatbelt can reduce the risk of fatal injury by 60%. Your best defense in any crash, buckling up. Brought to you by the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office. So, spring football gets going in earnest tomorrow. They'll have some thoughts from Greg Austin and Super Mario on Wednesday, I believe, in person. That'll be cool to see those guys. We'll have a little bit of commentary from Coach Lubick we didn't have time for today. And then plenty of thoughts on the NCAA tournament moving forward. And, you know, last saw it here on Barry Alvarez, and once he officially makes his announcement, I don't know if that's going to be in June or end of May or what, but Barry, you know, he'll be 75 here in, God, when is it? I think this upcoming fall. So it's time for him to just kind of sit back and relax, and I don't see Wisconsin really dropping off or taking a dip because you've got the Godfather Barry Alvarez system and blueprint and setup, and it's the Nebraska way that he took north, and they'll continue to recruit, they'll continue to develop, they'll be physical, they'll be tough, and as long as Krista's there, and Barry isn't going to go very far, I don't think, they'll be fine.
Yeah, the only way they can mess it up is if they bring in a new AD who decides to fire, you know, maybe a coach that just went 8-4 and won his bowl game.
Yeah, if they go find their own version of Steve Peterson, or a guy named Steve is on the line, or Sean for that matter, applying for the position, you hang up and you block the call. Okay, who you betting tonight here for the Elite Eight? That'll get tipped off here shortly, about 6:15 on ESPN Lincoln. Houston and Oregon State -8. Houston, and then you got 7.5 Baylor over Arkansas. Man, this is a throwback ball game, the old Southwest Conference. Baylor would always spend money on football players that weren't very good. Arkansas would spend money, allegedly, on football players that were very talented, and they'd both end up on probation. Back before the Big 12 was formed, and Arkansas went to the SEC. Give me Houston to cover, and Arkansas survived. Arkansas is good. Baylor's great. Baylor didn't shoot that well last time out. I think they'll be more on point. Give me Baylor to cover. Give me the favorites to cover. I may check this out, but again, tomorrow night, man, when you got Gonzaga, SC, and UCLA, Michigan, That's going to be pretty tasty.
I'm going to go complete opposite as you give me the underdogs to cover. Oregon State +8. We've seen what the Pac-12 can do this year. I'm never going to bet against a Pac-12 school the rest of this tournament.
The glass slipper has been chewed on by the Beavers. It does not fit anymore.
Doesn't mean they can't cover an 8-point spread. I don't think they're winning. Don't get me wrong here. I don't think they win. I don't think either of these underdogs win, but I think they both cover. Give me Oregon State to cover 8 and give me Arkansas to cover 7.5. But I think the favorites get the win in both.
Okay. Do you want to do an early steak and a beer?
Sure.
All right, why not?
Let's combine it with the games. Oh, I'm not going to be here tomorrow.
Yeah.
Well, we're early, so give me Gonzaga and...
Think about it. Text me.
Give me Gonzaga and Michigan tomorrow.
I will make sure I proxy it so it's in my favor tomorrow. That's Elijah. I'm Schmidt. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Thanks.